Hello there. I see you passing through the folds of history, quiet as a breeze. Why don't you come sit by this little fire of mine? It's warm enough if you stay close. Mind the smoke? It's got a habit of following you around, like taxes or bad luck. You're not in a rush, are you? Good, because I've got stories to tell. Nothing fancy, just the life of a poor, tired peasant. That's me, by the way. No title, no land, no last name really, just Tom. Tom of the Mud, if you must know. Now, don't expect castles or knights or any of that hero's tale stuff. I've never held a sword. Closest I've come is a very angry goose. But I've got dirt under my nails, straw in my hair, and aches in places I didn't know could ache. My mornings start early, earlier than roosters, in fact. Sometimes it's me that wakes 'em up and not the other way around. Sun's barely shown its face and I'm already outside, face first in the frost. We work the Lord's land mostly, not ours, no, never ours, but we plow it, plant seeds, weed it, and harvest it as if it were our own beloved patch. Then we hand most of it over like a love letter we're never allowed to read. The tools are wooden, the work is hard, and my back has formed a lasting friendship with pain. If I ever stood up straight, I think the sky would be surprised. Sometimes I talk to the crops, not because I expect them to answer, but because they're better listeners than most folk. They don't interrupt, and they grow faster when I whisper compliments. Though maybe that's just manure doing the trick. Lunch, if we get one, is usually some bread that could chip your tooth, or some broth that tastes like yesterday's water had a bad dream. Still, when your belly's been singing all morning, even sadness on a spoon tastes sweet. We've got a few sheep, a cow if we're lucky, and chickens who think they own the place. The cow's named Lady Matilda. She's our most generous soul, gives milk when she feels like it, and glares when she doesn't. The chickens, little feathered tyrants. One of them, self-proclaimed Empress of the Range, has taken a liking to pecking at my shins. I respect her authority. I have no choice. Afternoons blur into more work, chopping wood, fixing fences, chasing pigs who have escaped again just to show they can. I once spent 2 hours arguing with a pig. He won. I apologized. We haven't spoken since. By evening, I'm more dirt than man. Sometimes I don't even take off my boots before collapsing onto the straw. I've woken up with twigs in my beard and a mouse snoring beside me. We've grown close. His name's Francis, but no matter how tired I get, I always light this fire, because in the stillness of the night, when the stars are gossiping overhead, I can pretend I'm not just a shadow in the Lord's field. I can tell stories, like I'm doing now, like I'm doing for you. Now, let me tell you about what keeps this poor soul running. Food, or, as I like to call it, creative disappointment. We eat what we grow, mostly. Barley, turnips, onions, and sadness. If we're lucky, some cabbage too. If we're really lucky, the cabbage doesn't bite back. Bread is our daily companion. Not soft, fluffy bread like you might dream of. Ours is hard, chewy, and has the texture of a roof tile. I once broke a knife on a loaf. The loaf was fine. The knife is still upset. On most days, I eat a thing we call pottage. It's like a soup, but thicker and with fewer promises. You toss in whatever you have, beans, oats, maybe a few herbs if they haven't died yet, and simmer it until it tastes like, well, not being hungry anymore. Now and then, I find an egg. It's a joyous occasion. I hold it up like it's treasure, like I'm some kind of egg wizard. But then I remember I have to share it, and it's back to turnip stew. We drink ale, weak ale, mind you, not because we're party animals, but because the water's dodgy. Last time I drank river water, I hallucinated a talking squirrel. I tried making wine once, crushed some berries, let it sit in a jug by the fire for a week. I was excited, thought I was onto something. Turned out to be vinegar. Now it's used for cleaning feet. Efficient, at least. Beef and meat. Ah, now there's a dream. We smell it sometimes from the Lord's Hall. Rich, greasy, roasted things that float through the village like delicious ghosts. We don't eat much meat unless something dies unexpectedly, and when that happens, we mourn. For about 3 minutes, then start boiling a pot. I caught a rabbit once, ran around with a stick for half the morning, felt like a champion, a warrior, till I tripped and the rabbit got away. He sent a thank you note later. Sometimes we get scraps from the manor, mostly bones, but we boil them into broth and chew on them like they owe us money. I've gnawed a bone so thoroughly, I nearly found its memories. In winter, things get, well, lean. Roots, dried peas, whatever we manage to store without the rats getting it first. I swear the rats are smarter than we are. They organize, plot, and share resources better than the village council. But come spring, there's hope. Wild greens pop up. Nettles, dandelions, herbs if you know where to look. Tastes a bit like regret, but it's fresh. And after months of dry bread, even regret has flavor, so we get by. Not with feasts, no, but with clever hands, quiet patience, and a stomach that knows not to dream too big. Still, every bite we eat feels earned, even if it does squeak, crunch, or smell like last Tuesday. And now, with this bowl of mystery stew in hand, I sit by the fire and share my tales. You hungry yet? No? Lucky you. So, now that we've eaten, or at least imagined we have, let me show you where I sleep. Home is a generous word, but it does have a roof, most of the time. On one side, my hut sits at the edge of the village, wattle and daub as they call it, which is a fancy way of saying sticks and mud held together by optimism. It's one room, no separate chambers or fancy doors, just a space with a hearth in the middle, smoke curling up into the ceiling, not into a chimney, the ceiling, and then, eventually, your eyes. The floor, dirt, cold in winter, muddy in spring, alive in summer. I share it with a few bugs, the occasional chicken, and once, a confused duck. He stayed for 2 nights. We didn't talk about it. The roof leaks. Of course it does. Rain comes in like an uninvited guest. I plug the holes with rags, straw, sometimes bread. Yes, once I used bread. It worked, until I got hungry. There is no bed to speak of, just a sack stuffed with straw, and a few old blankets. They smell like smoke, mildew, and memories. Soft, not really, but after a full day's labor, anything feels like heaven. I do have a fire pit. It's the heart of the home. I keep it burning as often as I can, not just for warmth or cooking, but to keep the shadows company. In winter, we sometimes bring the animals inside. Yes, inside. The cow gets the corner, the chickens pick their spots, and I find room in between. It's like a very smelly sleepover, with clucking, privacy. That's for nobles and foxes. We live close, we sleep close, we argue close, even our dreams probably overlap. My door is a crooked piece of wood with a stubborn attitude. It creaks like it's gossiping every time it opens. I've grown fond of the sound. Lets me know I'm still here. Now and then, I'll hang something on the wall, maybe dried herbs or a lucky charm. My favorite was a carving of St. Cuthbert, but it fell off and scared the goose. She's still mad. But this little hut, it's mine. Well, no, it's the Lord's, like everything else. But it's where I sleep, where I dream, where I count the stars through the thatch. And that makes it almost home. When the wind blows through the cracks at night, I just pull the blanket over my ears and pretend it's music. Out here, you learn to find comfort in the creaks and lullabies in the drip 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 from the roof. Now, let's talk fashion. Not silk and jewels. No, I'm talking peasant chic. The kind of outfit that says, I've worked 12 hours and might fight a goose. I own exactly 3 pieces of clothing. 1 tunic, 1 pair of trousers, and 1 sole crushed by the weather. The tunic's wool itchy as a guilty conscience, but it keeps me warm, mostly, unless it's wet, which is often. The trousers are patched in so many places, they're more patched than original at this point. Each hole tells a story, usually a painful one, involving brambles or clumsy accidents with firewood. Underclothes, yes, the holy relics of laundry. I wash them when the river is warm enough not to bite me, so twice a year if I'm lucky. Maybe 3 times if summer feels generous. My cloak, that's my pride. It's wool too, rough as tree bark, smells of smoke and sheep, but it flaps nicely in the wind and makes me feel like a mysterious figure until I trip over it. Shoes, that depends on the season. In summer, I go barefoot. The earth and I are on a first-name basis. In winter, I wear rough leather boots that chew on my toes like they're angry. I stuffed straw in my boots once for warmth. Worked fine until a mouse moved in. We agreed to take shifts. He walks at night. I walk during the day. We can't afford dyes, so everything we wear is brown, or gray, or a suspicious in-between color I call mud's cousin. Bright colors are for people with coins, titles, and servants. We peasants wear the seasons. If I tear something, I stitch it back up by the fire. Badly, I'll admit, my sewing is less craft and more battle, but a crooked stitch still holds out the wind. On feast days, I wear my nice tunic, same as my other tunic, but I've brushed the straw off. Once I tied a piece of red string around my belt and felt downright fashionable until the goat ate it. I tried wearing a hat once, found it in the ditch, wore it proudly until someone said it looked like a turnip. Still wore it, but only in the dark. Turnip hats don't get you far at the alehouse. Sometimes I dream of silk, of boots that don't whisper threats to my ankles, of cloaks that don't smell like regrets. Then I wake up, scratch my neck, and keep walking. But my clothes, worn and ugly as they are a part of me, stitched with stories, soaked in seasons, and perfectly suited for sitting here with you by this humble fire. Now, if you're sitting by the fire long enough, you'll hear about God eventually. Out here, we don't have much, but we do have faith and fear, and both are usually served at church. The church sits at the center of the village, taller than any of our huts and made of real stone. Fancy, right? Must be nice to have walls that don't fall over in a strong breeze. Father Benedict runs the place, voice like thunder, breath like cabbage, and sermons longer than winter. He once preached so long, someone fell asleep and rolled off the bench. We assumed it was divine punishment. We attend Mass every Sunday unless we're dead. Even then, we try. It's the one day we get to sit still without guilt, though sitting on wooden pews feels like being judged by your spine. Religion isn't just something we believe in. It's everywhere. In the fields, in the weather, in the way the cow looks at you when you sin, especially on feast days. She knows. We tithe to 10% of everything, even when that everything is already nearly nothing. Sometimes I wonder if God takes turnips. If he does, he's eating well. They say the saints watch over us. I hope so. I imagine St. Cuthbert staring down, muttering, "Poor lad, that tunic again?" and St. Hildegard shaking her head at my stew. We keep little charms by the doorway, bits of wood with crosses carved in, or bones of something vaguely holy. One time I mistook a chicken bone for a relic, carried it for weeks. Saint Drumstick, patron of hunger. When things go wrong, and they often do, we light candles, we pray, we kneel until our knees complain. Sometimes things get better. Other times the roof still leaks. But at least we feel heard. Father Benedict says suffering brings us closer to heaven, which is good because I've been practically hugging suffering lately. Heaven better be warm, dry, and full of soft cheese. If not, I'll have questions. On holy days, we march in procession, sing hymns, wave branches, try not to trip in the mud. One time I stepped on the baker's foot mid-hymn. He sang louder after that, possibly in pain. Despite it all, the church gives us something to hold on to. Not just salvation, but rhythm. A calendar of saints and seasons, of fasting and feasting. A reminder that time keeps turning, even when the turnips don't. And when the world feels too heavy, when the fields are cruel and the nights too long, I look up at the stars and think, someone's listening. Hopefully someone kind. Hopefully not the goose. Taxes. You didn't think I'd forget about those, did you? If there's one thing more constant than mud on my boots, it's someone showing up to remind me what I owe. I owe the Lord, of course I do. A portion of my grain, some eggs, the occasional chicken if it's not hiding. And if the harvest is poor, well, I owe him most of the harvest. Then there's the church. 1/10 of everything goes to God, or at least to Father Benedict's pantry. So when people say I give my life to the Lord, they're not kidding. He's eaten more of my onions than I have. And let's not forget the mill. We can't grind our own grain. Oh no. We must use the Lord's mill for a fee. A rather enthusiastic fee, might I add. Sometimes I think about building my own mill, but then I remember the last man who tried. He vanished. Probably turned into a pile of mysterious taxes. Then there's labor service. A few days each week, I'm summoned to work the Lord's fields. Not mine, his. Which means I finish my day tired before I even begin my own chores. They once charged me for collecting firewood. Said I was stealing from the forest. I told them the trees seemed fine with it. They didn't laugh. Every autumn, the reeve comes by with his little scroll, full of numbers and names and grim intentions. I smile, he frowns. It's a relationship built on mutual disappointment. And if you can't pay, they'll get it some other way. Chickens, tools, blankets, a portion of your dignity. Last year, they took my second-best spoon. Sometimes I wonder if they tax my thoughts. If so, I owe them 3 panicked daydreams and 1 sarcastic prayer. And that was just this morning. Still, I try to laugh. Because if you don't laugh at taxes, you'll cry. And if you cry, they might charge you for watering the soil. Wouldn't put it past them. So I keep my head down, pay what I can, and offer a few muttered complaints to the sky. The sky is a good listener. Never once sent me a bill. Not yet anyway. The seasons. We don't follow calendars here. We follow the mud, the wind, and the mysterious pain in my left knee. When it aches, I know winter's coming. Or possibly just more chores. Spring arrives like a nervous guest, a little shy at first, peeking out behind the frost. The earth softens, and green things push through. We do too, slowly, like old men crawling from burrows. It's planting season then, which means bending, digging, and cursing softly at rocks that weren't there yesterday. My back becomes a permanent question mark, and my hands covered in enough dirt to qualify as their own farm. Summer is a mixed blessing. The days are long, the sun is fierce, and I sweat so much, the flies throw parties on me. But the fields are full and hope starts to feel possible. At least until the weeds arrive with their usual smugness. Harvest time is frantic, beautiful, and exhausting. It's like a race between man and rain. You gather what you can, as fast as you can, and hope the sky doesn't change its mind mid-scythe. Sometimes we sing as we work. Old tunes, half remembered but comforting, songs about love fields and one particularly tragic onion, don't ask. Then comes autumn. The world turns gold and brown, like it's preparing to sleep. We store what we can. Dry beans, salt meat, tuck root vegetables in like babies, and say prayers for the rats to find another address. Winter is something else. Cold sneaks through every crack in the hut. Frost paints the inside of my water jug. I once sneezed and saw it freeze in midair. Truly magical. We burn what little wood we have. Sometimes straw, sometimes old shoes. One year I burned a chair. Didn't sit for days after that. Regret is not a good cushion. We huddle, humans, animals, all together in a cozy stew of smells and snores. We eat less, sleep more, and tell stories to pass the time. The fire becomes our sun. The shadows are winter guests. Sometimes the snow gets so high the door won't open, which is a blessing. Really gives me a reason not to attend morning prayers. God understands. He invented snow, after all. But oh, the first signs of spring again. A bud on a branch, a worm in the soil, a sneeze from the cow. You feel it in your chest, like life waking up, and somehow so do you. So you see out here, time isn't kept by clocks. It's kept by sore muscles, changing winds, and the eternal debate of whether that cloud means rain or just more cloud. Now, let's talk about health, or, as I like to call it, survival with flair. Out here, staying alive is less about science and more about luck and a strong immune system built entirely from bad decisions. We don't have doctors. Well, we technically have one. He's also the blacksmith. His cure for everything is hot ale and yelling. Very effective if the illness is shyness. Mostly, we rely on the village healer, Old Maud. She knows every herb, root, and charm you can imagine. She once cured my cough with a mixture of thyme, mud, and something she refused to name. It worked. I don't ask questions anymore. Got a fever that's just heat trying to escape. Wrap yourself in rags and sweat it out, or jump in the river. Either way, you'll come out different, possibly wiser, or wetter. Toothaches, oh, those are a delight. The answer is usually to yank it out with pliers, a prayer, and a friend who can hold your legs down. Last time I lost a tooth, I gained a limp and a fear of buckets, and colds, they just happened. We treat them with warm broth, stale bread, and sheer stubbornness. If it lasts more than 3 days, it's not a cold, it's probably a curse. We light a candle and hope for the best. Injuries, oh, we're good at those. Working with sharp tools and slippery feels is a recipe for drama. We patch wounds with cloth, honey, or moss. Once, I used cheese. I do not recommend cheese. We do believe in humors, 4 of them. If your bile is off, you're angry. If your phlegm is high, you're sluggish. I once claimed I was too full of wind to work. Didn't fly. The reeve gave me more wind in the form of yelling. Sometimes we turn to charms. A bit of Saint So-and-so's bone tied to the wrist. A whisper over water. One man swears by sleeping with onions under his bed. Still smells like it. The worst is childbirth. I've seen women do it with a scream and a prayer, then go back to work in 2 days like nothing happened. They're tougher than the oxen, I swear it. We lose people too often. Sickness comes quiet and fast, and there's little we can do. We cry, we pray, we dig, and then we carry on. The earth holds our grief gently, like it knows. And yet we live with all our coughing, limping, sneezing, aching selves. We live, And when the stars come out, I thank them for every breath that doesn't whistle. Now, it's not all work and wheezing. We do have a bit of life beyond the fields. There's a kind of joy in being poured together, a shared madness, really. The best kind. The village isn't big, maybe 40 of us, if you count the baby twice. We all know each other's faces and each other's chickens, and we know who lets theirs into the church. On feast days, we gather in the square. There's music, usually a man with a cracked fiddle and another banging pots. It's not exactly a royal orchestra, but if you've had enough ale, it sounds like heaven. We dance, too badly, but with enthusiasm. That's what counts. Last year, I spun so fast I knocked over a barrel of pickled onions. We're still laughing. Storytelling's big here, by the fire, in the fields, even while shoveling dung. We pass tales like bread, old crusty, but full of flavor. Some about ghosts, others about goats, sometimes both, and jokes. We laugh when we can, even if it's just about the reeve falling in the pig pen again, or about my tunic looking like a distressed curtain, which is fair. We help each other, too. When someone's roof caves in or the cow wanders off, we pitch in. Not because we're saints, but because next time it might be our roof or our cow. Children run everywhere, barefoot, loud, sticky. They play with sticks, mud, and imagination. One of them claims he's a knight, his armor, 2 buckets, and a frying pan. We gossip, of course. It's our true pastime. Who's courting who stole whose chicken, who saw the miller with the widow near the woods. Spoiler, it was everyone. Market days are like holidays. Traders roll in with carts full of wonders, cloth, spices, salted fish. I once traded half a sack of oats for a wooden spoon carved like a fox. Still use it. Makes the stew feel fancy. Then there's the alehouse. A small, smoky room with 1 bench, 3 mugs, and endless stories. I go there when my back's sore and my soul is sore, which is often. It's not much, but it's hours. In the end, it's the people that make the mud bearable. Even if some of those people steal turnips. Now imagine if after all I've told you I still had dreams and hopes. But that shouldn't be surprising to you, as that's the only place I can see a bright future for myself, in my dream. Dreams, you see, are the true crop of the heart, and though my boots are caked in mud, my mind wanders to places far beyond this village. When the day's work is done and the sun dips behind the thatched roofs, I lie beneath my thin woolen blanket and hope for things not measured by bushels or coin, a life with fewer blisters, perhaps, or a loaf of bread that doesn't taste like the crusty boots I wear. Oh, the simple things. Sometimes I dream of a feast. Not the Lord's fancy ones with silver spoons, mind you, but a hearty meal with enough salt to make a man's tongue sing. Imagine a stew so thick it could stand a spoon upright, and a cup of mead sweet enough to forget the troubles of the day, even if just for a moment. But dreams aren't just about food, no? I fancy the idea of owning a little patch of land, just a small garden, where I can grow carrots that don't resemble sticks, and maybe even a cabbage or 2 that doesn't wilt under the summer sun like a sad old dog. A place where the weeds don't wage war on my efforts daily. And wouldn't it be a fine thing to have a cow? One that's not just a walking source of taxes and trouble, but a true companion. I imagine naming her Mildred, though, knowing my luck, she'd probably just run off to join the Lord's hunting party. Of course, I have bigger dreams too, secret ones I whisper to the stars on clear nights. Maybe one day I'll see the world beyond our village, past the great forest and winding river. I imagine bustling towns with cobblestone streets, where merchants shout about spices and silks, and the smell of fresh bread fills the air without the hint of manure, I hope. But above all, my greatest hope is simple. A life where my children won't have to toil quite so hard. Perhaps they'll learn to read, or at least know the joy of a warm bed without the worry of the cold sneaking in through cracks. Maybe they'll laugh more and worry less about the Lord's demands. In this world, hope is like the dawn, sometimes slow to rise, but steady and sure. And as I drift off each night, my dreams are the soft lullabies that carry me through till morning, reminding me that even the lowliest peasant can dream big, even if his boots are always muddy. So now, my friend, as you close your eyes and let the quiet of the night carry you away, think of me, just a simple man with simple hopes, resting beneath these endless stars. May your dreams be gentle, your worries light, and your heart full of peace. Good night, and may your own dreams be as warm and steady as the hearth fire in my humble home.